Hello and welcome in today's lecture. Today we shall be talking about forest and biodiversity conservation approaches in ancient India. Early faunal collapses. Literature is not a trustworthy indicator of change in the landscape or time, but archaeological evidences in the form of artifacts and animal remains is. There is little doubt that rice was being harvested or grown in a number of locations in India several centuries before the birth of Christ. Hunting, raising goats or sheep, and eating cereal frequently went hand in hand. People who depend on one line of work may be pushed towards the other by the unpredictable patterns of rainfall. The lines between cultivator, herder, and hunter-gatherer were not completely blurred. Wild animals were a significant source of meat in the various Harappan sites well before the eras mentioned in the Sanskrit writings. In northwestern India, around 1,000 sites older than 1700 BCE have been discovered or investigated. Numerous animal bones have been discovered, including those of the chetal, hare, jackal, big Indian one-horned rhino, wild ass, and elephant. Most of the seeds discovered in the ancient homes at western Indian sites are from local plant species that are now extinct. The distribution of several animals and plants changed as a result of likely climatic change, such as tracts becoming more arid. Others could have resulted from the influence of early humans. Up to about 300 BCE, the swamp deer or Bharasinga was found in Mehergarh in Balochistan. Its local extinction was most likely brought on by overhunting or habitat cultivation along the river, although it thrived along the Indus River until about a century ago. Its susceptibility to such change hastened its extinction. The case of species of wild cattle called the Bos primigenius nomadicus, also known as the zebu and related to well-known humped cattle, was more intriguing. Very early on, the species disappeared and hunting may not have been the cause. People hunted a variety of wild animals, but they only herded a few kinds. Although it may have persisted for a longer period of time in some parts of western India than in others, it is possible that the species interbred with domestic stock and went extinct throughout much of its territory. Domestic cattle and zebu, which are both smaller in size than their wild ancestors, contributed to the extinction of the rare breed. Such faunal extinctions were still unusual. The sheer size of the forest was one of the causes. Contrary to what was previously thought, much of the Indo-Gangetic plain did not undergo considerable denudation during the 2000 years prior to the Christian era. The Sanskrit literature frequently glorified the use of fire and iron instruments for transforming nature into culture and replacing jungle with arable land. Such jubilant reports, however, are not well supported by tangible evidence. At that time, the population density of entire Kanpur district was fewer than 1 person per square kilometer or less than 4,000. There is no denying that agriculture, domestication, and the taming of animals like elephants, roosters, water buffalo, and zebu cows was significant milestones. The local extinction of herbivores could be caused by even small groups of humans using methods that are today regarded as primitive. Forests for elephants. It was for the first time a unified political entity, the Mauryan Empire, that included vast stretches of the eastern Ganga plain as well as the central Indian forests around the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE. From this point forward, military might would depend in varied degrees not just on horses and weapons but also on the most amazing of the creatures used in battle, the elephant. It was undoubtedly domesticated during the Harappan era. But it wasn't until much later that it started to be used more widely. It served as a siege engine, a battle horse, a prestige symbol, a mobile hunting platform in areas of tall grass all at once. Throughout the ages, the animal was so essential to battle that managing elephant supply was a key element in the success of military operations. Elephants were easier to catch and tame than to breed, partly because of their long gestation periods of over 20 months and the sheer time and trouble it took to rear calves before they could enter the workforce. By the time of Mauryan emperor like Ashoka, the preservation of elephants had become a vital concern. The Arthashastra, which contains ancient statecraft maxims, clearly defines the responsibilities of the protector of the elephant forests. Even the tusks of animals that perished in the forest from natural reasons had to be turned over to authorities. Up to 8 of the elephant forests, or Hastavanas, mentioned in the book have been located and documented. Strangely, there was no comparable reserve in southern India. However, it's likely that the Mauryas did not rely on this area for supplies. The most far western area reserve was in Saurashtra, which is currently a semi-arid area. Even then, the latter's creatures were modest in stature and not particularly prized. The situation with horses was the complete opposite. Whereas the large animals were more numerous and of higher quality, the further east one went. The best horses were transported from areas to the west of the Indian subcontinent, since they were domesticated animals. Even more justification for the eastern Ganga Plains monarchs to claim monopolistic right over elephants. There were other forests where the goal was to obtain tiger and lion skins as well as timber. The protector of animals also fought to rid the forests of thieves, tigers, and other predators so that cattle herders might safely use them. Additionally, it was believed that different types of people lived in woodlands and should be appeased or subdued. The author of the Arthashastra had a negative view of the forest tribes and believed that in order to govern them, bribery and political subjugation were necessary. According to the 5th pillar of edict, our ruler killed very few animals. However, its subsequent assertion that other people followed suit and stopped killing is completely incorrect. The forest tribes had been warned that Ashoka's patience was finite, and he was aware of the boundaries of his authority over them. It was impossible to impose a restriction on forest fires, fishing, or hunting. Even cultivators, in addition to the forest dwellers, most likely regularly killed animals. Rule breakers did exist, as evidenced by 100 panas or coins fine for taking deer from a forest reserved for the king. The seize of forests. Rulers claimed that woods, mountains, and forests as their own. This is what Rama told Bali, the monkey king, as the latter lay dying from a mortal wound. Men used traps, nooses, hid and hunted, and killed for meat. The epic is no guide to events. However, it does provide some key insights. After so, the forests were so large that they extended across the northern Indian plains even a few decades after Valmiki composed the Ramayana in its final form. During his journey across India in the 7th century CE, the Chinese traveler Huan made numerous references to the vastness of the forested areas that made travel risky and challenging. The protection of rulers could include a few specific species such as the elephant and particular areas of forests. However, the jungles were important because they regenerated in areas where people had given up farming because of a lack of rains, sickness, or a natural disaster brought on by humans. South Asia's natural landscape was very different from what we know it to be today. We only get a glimpse of it from epics, other stories, and the fragments of animal carcasses. Dear students, the environment has been significantly impacted by the growth and civilization and development. Uncomfortable concerns concerning the idea of progress itself have been brought up by environmental degradation. A significant portion of the population has become disenfranchised as a result of environmental deterioration, which has serious implications for their way of life. As may be expected, development has promoted consumerism in a small segment of society while simultaneously depleting and degrading natural resources. Securing the right to preserve food, water, air, and all other naturally occurring elements in particular, as well as the environment in general, is imperative today. There is a growing trend of consciousness among us to address the few environmental issues and ecological imperfections that modern civilized countries are facing. There are different environmental protection regulations being produced in many nations, but they are all based on traditional knowledge that was created in the past and teaches us the value of living simply. We can use the straightforward guidelines set down by our ancestors who most likely understood the environment much better than we do now. In order for modern societies to quickly achieve a more stable, rich, and healthy environment, it is critically necessary to extract, study, and use the old Indian environmental and ecological conservation strategies. This was all about today's lecture. I hope you have comprehended well. See you in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye.